Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 139.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Be Well Together podcast. It's Sheila Webster here, and I am joined by Cheryl Rickers. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Sheila.
Welcome. If you have watched previous months, Cheryl and I joined together to do an overall at the end of the month. And this week, we are going to be talking about the month of July. In the month of July, there was 5 episodes. So we had a little bonus episode there. So the first thing I want to ask you, Cheryl, about this month is this is when we first introduced our new format. So
yes, the nice shorter format.
Yeah.
Which I didn't love the idea of because there's some segments that I really like to listen to every week. So I was pleasantly surprised when What's on Your Mind and the Expanding Minds interview were in every week. And then, of course, I like the sign-off. I love the sign-off.
Oh, that's
so
good.
I just like the free flow conversation of the What's on Your Mind and the sign-off. I love that part.
Good.
So yeah, I'm glad that it's every week, and sometimes less is more. And, you know, it's good to
leave them hanging. If they,
yes.
Right?
Leave them wanting more.
Leave them wanting more. I do agree with that. I remember sometimes I'd see some dances on stage and they would be over and I'd be like, come back. And I'm like, that's a good feeling, actually. So maybe that's what John was thinking. He wants people to be coming back for more.
Yes.
Right? So I agree with you that I was a little upset because I like all the episodes. I like the pop-ups. I like listening to Cameron. I love doing the Flipside. I was a little worried about it, but I understand what John's problem was. It was just a lot and he needed to cut it back, and we were finding it hard to get all the segments done every week. So this gives him more time and I actually really enjoy it.
I love it.
Okay, well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Let's talk about some interviews. Any interviews that stood out to you in the month of July?
Martin Patella was on the first episode of July and the last episode, so 127 and 131. And his information was very scientific. I loved it. Talking about your metabolic health and what kind of metabolic type you are, which I'm still not sure how you determine that.
Me neither.
But he was very interesting. There's Dr. Casey Means out there who I've listened to her on a few podcasts, and she has a book called Good Energy, and it's the connection between metabolism and limitless health. Touches on a lot of the same things as Martin did about the mitochondria and just different things you need to do to maintain really limitless health. So I found him very interesting. I listened to his portion a couple of times just because I found it very heavy and I didn't want to miss anything. But the other interview I loved was Chris Pelletier about the Mark Priest family house, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing that he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. So back to Martin. So episode 127 and 131, I agree that it was intense. Like I'm listening to it and it's like, oh my goodness. Oh, wow. You know, like how everything affects everything. And, you know, the whole what you put in and what you keep and what you get rid of and how things move. And I just found it incredibly informative. And it made me actually want to be healthier.
Yeah,
right.
And because you got to move those toxins out.
Yes. Yeah. And how they store those toxins. And it was a little scary because he's talking about all these toxins that are out there and now all these band waves too that he's talking about with cell and everything. And your body absorbs all that and how your body reacts to it. I found a little bit scary because some of those things we have zero control over.
Yeah. And that is concerning. But, you know, there are things that we do have control over, environmental toxins that we bring into our own home, like heavily scented deodorants, wall plug-in air fresheners. They're all hormone disruptors and they cause inflammation in your body, and inflammation causes disease. So yeah, like simple things like I can smell when my neighbors do laundry. Yeah.
I'm going to look into all that because it would be really nice to know that we can at least change our little world right? Like our little fishbowl that we live in. That's what Martin was talking about, how you live in your fishbowl and everything that comes in and everything that goes out is there, affecting you.
Yeah.
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 And now to Chris Pelletier's interview. Yes, that was amazing. And I think it's so needed in all hospitals. Mm-hmm. So this was episode 128 that we're talking about. And they have this family home that they offer to people who are need to go to the hospital, and for their spouse or for them, they have a place to stay.
Much like the Ronald McDonald's Children's House.
Yes. But
it doesn't have to be a child that's in the hospital.
Yeah. And I feel like, we need that in all hospitals, because
there is a small fee. Like, I think they pay $60 a night, but that's much, much less than a hotel. And they have free parking, they have a kitchen, they have laundry, all the things that will help families be able to be close to their loved ones.
But my problem is that we need it more than just Hamilton. Like, I'm like, this is amazing. Now let's get one in Kitchener. Now let's get one in London. Is there one in Toronto? These are things that we really need, because I do find when you're in the hospital, when you have a loved one in the hospital, you're already dealing with all the problems, the health problems, but to also have to deal with parking and traveling and where to eat. Like, at least the kitchen, you're eating healthier. You get better sleep.
Takes your mind off. It's one less thing you have to worry about. And any major center that has a trauma hospital, like McMaster or St. Mary's or Javinsky or whatever in Toronto, for sure. It's needed everywhere.
We need these everywhere.
It was great. I didn't even know things like that existed. And the money, they do tons of fundraisers, and you can donate through Amazon and Costco, I think. So,
wow, really, really cool.
Yeah, through my registry. Yeah. So I thought it was kind of cool. And you can ship things to them. They are on Amazon and Costco. And so you can go in under Mark Priesthouse and make a donation, or you can send them things through Amazon. It's very cool.
That is so cool. And now there's a few fun things that I want to talk about this month. So one of the fun things was I really liked Elise and Steven's Flipside. I always find that I learn more about their relationship every time I listen to their Flipside, and they do one a month. So this month they were talking about teaching in Korea and how teaching English as a second language really helped them to perfect their own English and perfect their teaching ability. Like, I'm very
expressive.
Yeah. Expressive, not just verbally, but my facial expressions and your hands expressions, you have to be very expressive because they can't understand you every time. And those kind of things. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. Because expressions really are a universal language.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that look or that eye roll or yes, exactly. Yeah. And I really liked Cameron's when he talked about the musical sync with the
traffic lights.
Yeah. I was like, that's so cool. And it reminded me of a story. John has been cleaning out our back room. And so in this back room, we have stored all our stuff from all the years. And he found this video that we had when the kids were very little. We went on this trip, and there's a video of the ocean, and it's going in and out. And the song is like, one love, whoa. And the way it's going, the waves are literally going, whoa. Well, the words are going, whoa. And I was like, oh my God, there's Cameron sync, in life. And John said, I didn't do that on purpose. Like, I just put the music in and it just happened to sync.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm like, that is so cool. And the other funny story was the don't flirt at the gym. We talked about that.
That was funny.
My 5 rules. And I'm always thinking of rules when I'm on my machine or something. I'm at the gym. I'm like, you shouldn't do that. And you shouldn't do that. But anyways, so here I am. The night before, my fingers were a little swollen. So I decided to take my wedding ring off. Sometimes I like to do that just to give my finger a little breathing space. And then I forget that I don't have it on. So I'm at the gym. I'm on my machine, sweating a lot because it's really hot. I'm sweating. And this guy comes and stands right beside me. And gets on the machine, and he's looking at me, and he's kind of leaning over, and he's looking at my machine. And I'm like, dude, there's like 6 other machines. Like, what are you doing? We're on the machine. It's all good. And I'm getting that vibe. And then I realized I don't have my wedding ring on.
Oh, flirt.
I know. I'm like, you are flirting. You shouldn't be flirting at the gym. You're trying. And I was like, oh, man. I mean, it was kind of nice that, maybe he noticed me. I don't know. But
you still got it.
I'm like, don't flirt at the gym. That's a rule. Don't you listen to our podcast.
Episode 127, gym etiquette.
Yeah, so there's some
that's
takeaways.
funny.
Yeah. Very funny. And the last thing I'd like to talk about at episode 129, we talked about victory isn't everything.
Yeah.
And I really feel that in life, being a competitive dancer, a competitive teacher, like it's not about the victories. And I feel like you learn even more when you fail, when you fall, when things don't turn out, how you get back and, what you do next, I think is a great learning experience. So that really hit me. I'm like, yes.
Well, and Navratilova, who said the quote, "The moment of victory is much too short to live for that and nothing else," has been both victorious and has fallen short. So it's interesting because the actual quote is by Martina Navratilova, who of course won many, many victories in tennis, and also didn't, fell short lots of times. So the moment of victory is much too short to live for that and nothing else. Mm-hmm. She's been there. So she knows what it's like to be victorious, but also relishes the moments that came when she wasn't victorious. So I thought that was great.
Yeah. And I think we've all been there. We've all been up and we've all been down and we all,
That's how you get back up.
That's right. It's how you get back up. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Cheryl. It's been a pleasure and a lot of fun. And we'll talk to you next month.
Bye.
Hello, listeners. It's John. And I'm here to let you know we are going to do something different over the next 8 weeks. We're going back to basics. We have lots of great conversations in all kinds of different areas, and we hope you enjoy them all. They are all related to different areas of wellness when we interview guests. Either that or talking about balance generally between different categories. And there's a good chance that new listeners weren't around at the start when we put these pieces together and explained how things tie together. So we want to do a focus on facets. In the next 8 weeks, we're going to highlight an interview associated with each of 8 areas of wellness. It all ties back to my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. It's why we say it'd be great if you picked up a copy and had a read. We think that you'll take a lot more out of the podcast if you have a chance to do that. But just to hit some highlights, in part, the book talks about the approach to balance and wellness that I developed for myself that works really well. And a key part of it is that I seized on 8 facets of wellness, 8 areas, categories, whatever you want to call them. And that's what we explore on the show to a great degree. I'll just run through a list: mental, artistic, environmental, spiritual, physical, intellectual, economic, and social. And the way we look at it is that they're all interconnected, and each category can have an impact on the other. And in the book, I give examples of how other categories can have a direct impact on mental wellness. So for example, physical, I become frustrated when I'm sleep deprived. Economic, I feel less stress when our finances are under control. Social, spending time with family or friends puts me in a better frame of mind. Artistic, listening to my favorite music makes me feel better. Environmental, it's soothing to go for a walk in the woods. Spiritual, feeling connected to others helps me get through difficult situations. Intellectual, solving a challenging problem lifts my spirits. So again, those are just little examples of how one category can affect the other. Thinking this through and writing the book helped me develop what I call an elevator speech for the new approach I'm working on. I consider different facets of wellness and work towards balance over the course of my lifetime. I consider whether I'm making trade-offs and whether they make sense or are troublesome. Whichever trade-offs I make, I commit to eat nutritious food in moderation, exercise, and stay in touch with my physical nature. I don't want to merely exist. I want to live life in every breath. And the concept of trading off is that we're limited in our time. And so in a given day, we may be able to do some work on social wellness, economic wellness, maybe a couple others, but maybe not on all of them. And if that day turns into the next and the next and the next, we may end up trading off one area for another over an extended period of time, and we need to check in on that. We don't have a regimented approach to how our interviews connect to these areas. We don't just keep going around the wheel in that order. If you look back and, for example, look at the archives page on our website, you'll see that each interview is identified with one or more areas and or with the concept of balance. And we are going to play from past episodes one interview associated with each category. And I'm about to have a conversation with Sheila to figure out which ones that'll be. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to focus on facets. I'm actually very excited about this because I had to go back and listen to the episodes, and there were so many interviews. I was just blown away at how amazing they were.
I really had a hard time too. Like, I thought when we came up with this idea, let's pick examples of each category and then run through them just to give a refresh on the concept we're going for.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be that hard, but
no,
like even here, so I've got for all the 8 categories, sometimes I have 3, 4, 5 listed. Mm-hmm. Even then I couldn't say my favorites. I just had to pick different ones and cut the list down almost haphazard.
Yes.
Because so many were fantastic. So why don't we start with what we wrote down for mental between the two of us?
Okay.
I'll start by just reading the ones we have on our list, and then we can try and figure out which one we'll play.
Okay.
Okay, episode 2, Beth Beattie, part 2. A quick point there. When we started, we were doing half-hour interviews, but we decided that was too long, so we cut them to 15. So a lot of the early episodes, they're 2-part interviews. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about the part 2s is it summarizes highlights from part 1, and then we finish it off with part 2. So Beth Beattie, episode 2, part 2, a weight lifted after 14 years of angst. And she was talking about experiences with bipolar disorder. Episode 36, it was part 2 of her interview with Imran Kamal. And he talked about addressing addiction as a lifelong process. Episode 86, Jody Skeets, from grief to helping widowed people because she lost her husband at a young age. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, 93, Shane Corson, finding mental health help and support. What an amazing opportunity for me to speak with not only an NHL hockey player, but somebody I used to cheer for.
Right. And so amazing that he actually did that interview and that we got the opportunity to hear it.
So I don't know, like, what are you thinking?
Well, for me, I was thinking for a few reasons that I'd like to do Beth Beattie.
Okay.
For one, it's one of the earliest episodes.
That's true.
So
she was our first guest.
Yeah. So you're going way far back, right? So I think maybe everyone didn't start at the beginning. And if they did start at the beginning, if they're like me, they're going to have forgotten a lot, or there's just a few little jewels in there that you catch. And it's just really great to hear again.
Beth Beattie is a force in my world as a lawyer in Ontario. She is one of the leading lawyers, helping others to think about mental health and providing information about it and support and the rest of it. So that's another reason. I don't know, because I'm kind of pulled. I obviously would love to put on Shane Corson because I think he's amazing.
Yeah. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick. We're going to do Beth Beattie.
Okay. I agree. So
there
that takes us to physical wellness.
Okay. So physical, there was a lot for Hillary, which we really enjoyed.
Yeah, we have lots of different physical. We have people who trained for CrossFit. We have people who ran marathons. But the two kind of go-to people so far we've gone to are trainers, Hillary Fitzgerald and Andrea Lee.
Yeah, both awesome.
And so tell me about the ones you're interested in.
Okay, so the ones we threw on the list were episode 21. Hillary Fitzgerald goes over benefits of different types of workouts. Episode 68, Hillary again goes motivating us to exercise, which is really important. You know, like just getting to that mat is half the battle. Episode 87 was Andrea Lee, mind-muscle connection with weight training. Episode 91, Andrea Lee, breathing techniques while weightlifting. And that one I really enjoyed because I didn't really realize that it was that important, the breathing with the weights. And again, Andrea, episode 119, personal trainers and hybrid options. And that one was pretty recent, so I do remember that one. And I loved all the hybrid options I didn't even realize existed. So I thought that interview was really awesome.
So which one are you leaning towards?
I'm leaning towards episode 68. Hillary talks about motivating us to exercise.
Yeah, it's so tough. the ones for Andrea's 87 to 91, the mind muscle connection and breathing technique, I actually use those things when I'm working out now.
Me too.
And the breathing technique I didn't have right before. I try and do weights a couple times a week, and I was holding my breath, and she explained why that's such a bad thing. But yeah, the goals to motivate, that's a good one, right? Because we're trying to motivate people to exercise.
Yeah. And
so any tricks there are to get you going, and that's a really good one. So maybe we'll do episode 68, Hillary and goals to motivate us to exercise.
Okay.
So spiritual wellness, again, so many possible options.
Wow.
So I threw 5 on the list. I really, really enjoyed speaking with Reverend Jessica Purple-Rodella. She is an atheist minister. And on episode 16, she talked about spirituality in the context of atheism. And on 51, she talked about atheism and being good for its own sake, and some stories about Hosea Ballou. So those are really good ones that I could for sure pick. Episode 28, Reverend Mashiko Bonkai, she discussed transgender topics in the Christian context. And what I really loved about it was how she spoke about Christianity as a welcoming community and making room for people. It was really interesting.
Yep.
We really enjoyed our interviews of Clarence Kakaji. There's a couple. And on episode 41, he talked about 4 quadrants of spirituality in an indigenous heritage. So that one could easily be one that we'd like. And then lastly, Reverend Nora Futon, she had terminal cancer, and she was willing to talk to us first in a different episode about what it felt like to get that diagnosis. And this one we called Beauty All Around and Every Moment Precious, because she was talking about how she was looking at life as she knew she was approaching the end.
Yeah, blew my mind.
And she ended up passing away on January 10th, 2024. She also passed away through medical assistance in dying. And we also talked to her about that on episode 89. So how do we pick between these 5?
I don't know, John. They're all just amazing. But we do have to pick. Which one do you pick?
I just think there's something special about Nora's in terms of hearing from someone in that position, because you're going to be authentic at that point. Right now, all the rest are fantastic too, and they're all authentic too. But I think if I had to pick between those 5, I'd pick Nora's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I loved it. I mean, I love them all, but I loved that interview. And the fact that she did pass away, it's nice to go back and hear her talking again. And now we move to economic wellness. And for this one, there are 3, and all 3 of them are by Jill Melanson. The first 2 is a 2-parter, and they are episodes 27 and episode 30. And it's introducing us to saving concepts. And then there's another, which is episode 53. And Jill talks about the household budgeting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, these are key things. And there's a whole bunch we didn't put on the list. There's some where people talk about buying your first home or selling your first home. There's ones on how to make a power of attorney, why you should make a will, why these are important things. There's a whole bunch that touch on economic wellness. And because a lot of people get stressed out by finances.
Yes. And they may not even know that they're stressed out about finances.
I really like the one on budgeting because it also kind of ties into our lifestyle, because budgeting is kind of a big part of what we did when we were
right. And
younger.
I also feel like budgeting is something that everyone has to do, whereas the other ones are very particular, about either buying a new house if you're in that type of part of your life, or, wills. It's set parts, whereas this one, everyone can get something out of it. So it's kind of a good one to redo.
That's a good point. It's any time in your life. So then environmental wellness. We talk a lot about environmental wellness on our What's on Your Minds. There's lots of tips and stuff. Julie and Elise talked a lot about it.
Yes.
You and I talk a lot about it.
Yes.
In terms of interviews, there's 2 main ones for me. And both were Tova Davidson from Sustainable Waterloo Region. The first one, episode 11, she introduced us to carbon emissions and offset concepts. And in the second, she introduced us to UN Sustainable Development Goals. But in doing that, she said some things that just blew us away.
Yeah, blew us away. So I really think we should listen to that one again.
Like, give me an example.
Well, the fact that Canada, I thought that we were very environmentally friendly and aware. And she said that we are one of the worst of the G7 countries.
If not the worst.
If not the worst.
I know, and we're like, what?
Oh my gosh.
We're friendly, environmentally friendly Canadians. Okay.
And then the carbon offset, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
And she talks about that, which was very interesting. Yeah, really loved it.
Now on artistic wellness, which is really important to me, and I think on a lot of people's lists of wellness categories, they don't have artistic. But we talked to a lot of artists. We had comedians, which we love as a form of art. Doug Koning on episode 39 talked about balance while pursuing a dream because it's hard to become a comedian and make a living at it. And then Sandy McFarlane from Rusty Nail Comedy, at the start, he helped us out. He did on episode 12. He talked about a connection between stand-up comedy and mental health. On episode 23, he talked about stand-up comedians as artists asking questions. We had a photographer on episode 114, Mike Farkas, talk about photography and artistic wellness. And then on episode 29, Shirley Medill, who's the director of the KW Art Gallery, talked to us about connections between art and wellness. So lots to choose from.
Lots to choose from. But I think generally my pick would be episode 29 with Shirley.
I think so too, just because it was like the larger conversation about connection. And there's some pretty cool stuff going on at art museums and wellness. Okay, so we'll do that one. Intellectual. Now, I only put a couple on the list. To be honest, it's hard to find guests to talk about intellectual wellness.
Yeah.
But luckily, we got to talk to a couple people. We talked to Al Torgman on episode 43 on something I had never heard about, but has really changed my thinking ever since that conversation.
Yeah.
Which is Stephen Covey's quadrants and time management. What a cool discussion that was.
Really cool.
And episode 106, this is truly one of my favorites because I was looking for someone to talk about philosophy and I was looking for someone to talk about ancient philosophy. And I connected with Ryan Bush. What a fantastic resource he is. Like the work that he's doing, we did an interview on his book, Become Who You Are. He has other books. I really love his approach. And he talked about ancient philosophy being relevant to everyday life. And ever since that discussion, I've had a whole bunch of breakthroughs on, you know, how to approach things, how to think more about ethics in a different way. It's been fantastic.
So you and I are torn on this one.
Well, I could go either way for sure. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking we should do the Al Torchman interview.
Yeah. And the other thing is because I'm thinking so much about Ryan's approach and some of the things he said, I'm going to come back to it. So I'm pretty confident I'm going to cover this at some point as I talk about how I interpret it and how I kind of add to it. So yeah, let's do Al.
Okay.
So that means one left.
Okay. And this one's the hardest.
I mean, I couldn't even put 5 down here without struggling.
I don't even think we've picked yet.
No.
There's so many.
So let me just tell you the ones we put on the list because social wellness is so important. We have the ability and the power to help each other so much. We're not alone here.
And a lot of our interviewers actually talk about that's one of the areas that is lacking is their social. Yeah. When you ask the question, we ask every guest, a lot of them refer to social wellness, that it's lacking and that they need more of it or they really
because
appreciate
they're so busy trying to help other people. They don't help themselves.
Yeah.
Let me burn through the list because we got to actually get to the interviews.
Okay.
So episode 4, Scott Williams discusses concepts in the gender and 2S LGBTQ plus space. And that was important to me because, and I intentionally picked that as one of our early episodes because I wanted to send a signal right off the start that we are inclusive when we approach wellness. Episode 15, Elisa Brewer-Singh of Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council. She talked about reaching out for help or offering support in the context of suicide prevention. And there's some counterintuitive stuff when it comes to this. Like, for example, I think a lot of us would think, don't talk about it. Whereas
don't mention it.
It helps to actually talk to people about how they're feeling. Episode 25, whoa, this one blew me away. Clarence Kakagi, it was his first interview, and he talked about the difference between territorial acknowledgements and land acknowledgements. And to this day, I almost always hear people say they're about to give a land acknowledgement and they give a territorial acknowledgement.
Yes.
So nobody really understands it.
No.
He talks about this. He told me what a smudging ceremony is, which I didn't know.
No.
But then to top it all off, when I asked the question we ask every guest, he told a story, a very personal story about his upbringing that just threw me for a loop. And I thought it was amazing that he was willing to share. And then lastly, episode 69, Shireen Samuels, what is anti-racism and why learn about it? And there's a difference between not being racist and being anti-racist. I hadn't been tuned into it. So what are you thinking?
Oh my gosh, John. I think they're all so amazing. I want to hear every single one of them. So we should just do each one, no?
Well, you can always listen whenever you want.
And I do.
You just go to Spotify or Apple or wherever. And
I think Clarence is my pick. I loved his spirit. I loved his energy that he had. I also really loved Shireen's interview. So,
well, the thing is, like, what I find interesting about Shireen's, why I'm kind of leaning that direction, is you just read a book.
Called Cast. Mm-hmm.
And you said you read the book, then you went back and listened to Shireen again, and you just hit you in a completely different way.
Totally different way. I didn't understand the social construct. You know, I've heard that word all the time, and I know that they explained it in the interview, but I still didn't understand it. After reading this book, Cast, I completely understood what she was talking about and understand how I can do something about it. That's what I love about the interview, that it's anti-racism, that we need to do something.
Yeah. So instead of just being, hey, I'm not racist, there's an onus on us to do something.
Yeah, to change.
To change society, to change the rules, to change how things work.
Exactly.
And become anti-racist.
And I think, so that should be the go-to.
Okay, so there you go. So we've worked out what we're going to do. And for the next 8 weeks, we're going to go around the wellness wheel. And we're going to do a focus on facets. And today, starting with Beth Beattie, part 2. Here we go. Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. So let's have a little recap of what Beth said last week, and we'll go back into the rest of her interview.
It takes me back to when I was 27 years old and I was a first-year associate at that firm that we were both at. Got depressed, clinically depressed, and I saw a psychiatrist, and I eventually went on antidepressants after being hesitant for a little while because I thought, taking psychiatric medication might be a sign of weakness. Wrong here. The problem was the stigma associated with being bipolar. Certainly, the stereotype was and is that we are inherently unstable and unreliable, and I did not want to be seen in those terms. So I kept my illness quiet for 14 years. And I think when we're trying to help someone who seems to be going through something, it's important to reach out to them and ask them what they need, rather than us assuming what they need. Yeah, so really get from them what they want rather than make assumptions as to what you think they need.
Another thing that I wrote down, you talked about a process of revealing. So let's go back now. So it's a situation where someone's experiencing a mental health issue, and obviously who wouldn't feel a stigma and be resistant, reluctant to reveal it at work? What are the kinds of things? And again, what struck me is you didn't say during your seminar that I heard that people should reveal it at work. What you said was, here are some things people can think about if they're thinking about revealing it at work, and then they can choose whether to go through with that or not. So could you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking about in the process that you thought about?
Yeah, it's definitely not a should to come out of the mental health closet at work. It's such an intensely personal decision that I would never recommend to anyone that they do it at someone else's say-so, including mine. So the conservative approach is to not tell anyone. And that's fair enough because especially if you're going through a depressed period or an anxious period, you may not want to expose yourself to what you worry about in terms of stigma. So you can just keep quiet because once the story is out, you can't retract it. So it's fair enough to keep it quiet. Then you can, if you feel comfortable, reach out to one person. That's what I did at my office. A wonderful woman who's a good friend. I just kind of blurted out to her, Sari, I'm bipolar. And she was very supportive. And it was great to be able to go to her when I was feeling vulnerable. And then ultimately, after 14 years, I decided to tell some of my closest friends at the office. And they were wonderfully supportive. So then ultimately I went to my legal director and told her, and she was great about it all. So I just received so much support. And then I decided to disclose at one of our monthly staff meetings. That's our branch is about 50 people, lawyers and staff. And it was agony. Like the weeks leading up to it were incredibly difficult. I had an upset stomach. I had a hard time sleeping. I had these pangs of anxiety shooting through my chest. But it ended up going really, really well. My colleagues gave me a standing ovation. And it was just lovely. And there's been no looking back. I've been a mental health advocate since that time.
And how many are you working only on dog files?
No, my practice didn't change at all.
That's great.
I love it. I'm still given really challenging work, so it's great. And I'll say this, John, I've now given well over 100 presentations. I've sort of lost count. And I've had some articles published, including the Globe and Mail. So literally my story's gone out like to showing tens of thousands of people, and with the Globe, hundreds of thousands of people. And I have not once received a negative comment to my face or an email. Not once.
No, and I mean, you're on the vanguard here. I mean, not even for that reason. I'd like to think that anybody who can step forward, and then essentially you're asking for understanding, you're asking to let people know that be yourself in front of them. I'd like to think that everyone will react that way. But another thing, I think the reason why people stand up and applaud is because, you know, we're at a time where finally in the last few years, we're seeing some real breakthroughs where, you know, whether it's Bell, Let's Talk, or other things. And by the way, they're not a sponsor. We just happen to mention it. But whatever it happens to be, we can talk more openly about this. And so a lot of people, I think, have to thank you for what you're doing, and maybe other people will be able to do the same thing.
Well, I think that certainly for some people, when they disclose at work, there is a risk that there's going to be a jerk who's going to say something negative. And what I would say to the person who's disclosing is, yeah, there's a jerk, but there are many, many more supportive people around you. So the supportive people far outweigh the jerks. So I would just sort of rely on support from the majority of people and try not to worry about the jerk too much.
And you're able to then continue working, being productive, being effective. Do you feel like there's a load taken off at all? Do you feel any different?
Oh, I feel terrific. Like I just have found the disclosing process to be incredibly cathartic and empowering. After hiding, I consider it as being 14 years of living as a condensed ball of angst, worrying about people finding out about my illness. So it was, once I disclosed publicly, it was kind of like this explosion where all sorts of good things have happened. And the most important of which is that it's helping to open the conversation and also supporting other people to get the help that they need. So I've loved it. I just so enjoy it. I so enjoy it, and I've really benefited from it personally.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to ask you about too, which is, there's a long story as to where we all end up where we are, including how I'm talking to this microphone right now. And one of the things that got me motivated was I started off helping people in certain areas and then others, and then I was part of a service club and doing volunteer work and helping people in the community, and I got a lot out of that. The other thing too is it's just a great feeling inside to help people. And also, you know, it's a bit humbling too, because I see somebody who needs help and I help them without judgment. And then that means if I need help, I feel more comfortable saying, well, people who might help me won't be judging me because I don't judge others. So in your experience, you've now, like you said, you've talked to thousands of people. You've done so many seminars. What are you getting out of it on that front? Is that helping your state of mind? Is it, how does it work?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's part of my anxiety disorder and perhaps part of my personality that I need to have, or at least I desire to have, positive reinforcement. And usually after I make a presentation, I get positive feedback. So it kind of feeds that almost neurotic side of myself. And I'm a big-hearted person. When I hear that people are getting the help that they need or have started to disclose and are getting a lot of support, yeah, that just warms my heart. So I just think that making presentations can be profoundly helpful to at least one person in the audience. If it's just one person, that's good enough. Usually it's more depending on the size of the audience, but it can just be so beneficial. And I know I do hear from people. I know that there are a lot more that I don't hear from who benefit from my disclosing. Yeah.
Okay. And then of course, we're getting closer to the end, and I've got a question I ask every guest. I'll let you know about that. But I cannot move past talking to somebody who likes to exercise without talking about exercise and wellness. And so my experience was that for whatever reason, I didn't do it for this reason. I didn't go into exercise for wellness. But at a certain point after I got into running and I was out meditating and running, doing all that stuff, a whole bunch of ideas relating to wellness started to make sense to me. And so now I see my own personal view is that it would be great if everyone could find some time to do some kind of physical activity, and I'm not talking about high intensity stuff, even a walk in the forest, a walk on a path, going out and getting some fresh air. To me, that's, I think, fundamental. And I'd like to talk to other people who've gone through these experiences. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, somebody who's going through your experiences, how do you feel like exercise helps?
Yeah, I would say after taking medication, the next most important part of my staying well is exercise. For me, cardiovascular exercise really works. I get that runner's high. I was a big runner for many years. I've had to retire due to injuries, but I definitely get that high, and I can still get it with a spin bike, doing spin classes, or I have my own spin bike right over there. And that makes a dramatic difference in lifting my mood. If I'm feeling anxious, then I hop on the bike, and after whatever it is, say 45 minutes, I come off with this clarity of mind, and whatever problem I've been grappling with, I usually am able to surmount it after the cardio exercise.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think, can relate to that in the sense of sleeping on it, and it's a neat feeling. Yeah. And I think you can do it both ways. I think you can sleep on it. I think you can exercise on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm with you that not everyone enjoys exercise. So a brisk walk can really help. Like it calms my mind, a good brisk walk. And certainly yoga is meditative as well as being physical. So I think that's great. I don't do it as much as I should, but
no, I'm the same. I was really shocked when I went to yoga class. So didn't want to go for a long time. I'm not flexible, and I thought I was going to be judged. None of those things happened, but I had no idea about the mindfulness side to yoga, where you can focus on a breath and bring yourself to the moment, and in doing that, lose a lot of the spinning of the mind on the issues of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, look, let me explain this a little bit, because this is the first show nobody knows about the same question I ask every guest. So let me explain the concept a bit, which is we are exploring that there's different facets of wellness. I have 8 that I've identified that are important to me, things like mental, spiritual, environmental, intellectual, and others. They're on the website if anyone wants to look. And the way that you can enhance wellness in each of those areas has to do with activities. So, for example, If you're off on the physical side, go for a walk, make sure you get your sleep. These are all different activities that you can do to foster wellness. So I'm going to try and ask guests when I get a chance the same couple questions. So you're the first victim. Are you ready? So right now, are you currently neglecting a facet of wellness, a category of wellness? And if so, can you think of one activity that you could do to foster wellness in that area?
Yeah, the area where I'm lacking is to stop the spinning that goes on in my mind. Like for the most part, I'm good, I'm productive and all of that. But in terms of peace of mind, I don't have as much as I would like. Part of it is I have elderly parents who are just a train wreck, both of them. So what I would really like to fit more into my life is reading. I've always been a big reader. In the last few years, especially during COVID, I just have not been reading fiction as much as I would like. And I think reading is meditative. Like you have to focus your thoughts so that you can read the story. And I picked up a novel today, and I hope to start reading it tonight.
Well, that's great. You know, I think I'm in the same camp as you. I just remember when I was young, especially as a kid in grade school and early high school, I loved reading. I loved fiction. It just takes you away to a different place in a different way than even TV. And geez, I don't remember the last novel I read. I mean, I read these kind of cheesy novels on vacations where, you know, you read something on the flight that's just something cheesy, but it's time.
John Grisham.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But I can't remember the name of it, but it's Jack Reacher. That's what I read.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But you're right. You know what? I'm going to put that on my list of something to think about too. So thanks very much. This was our first interview. It was amazing. I really appreciate it.
Okay, John, thanks very much for having me on.
Okay. Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And it's sign-off time. It's Elise here with Sheila and John.
Hello.
Hi.
I've had actually a pretty busy week. I had a couple after-school events this week. And then I also had some social events going on this week. So I attended a great birthday party outside. We ate under the stars. It was lovely.
That did look very nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I got to see some high school friends on Saturday. And I also was able to go see an old dance friend and pick up a bunch of baby stuff, which we're so grateful for.
Oh, that's exciting.
Really been spoiled.
Was it a price list with it?
No price list.
No price list.
That was great.
Just please take these out of my house. One of those.
Exactly. Boxes and boxes.
Oh, really?
We're just overwhelmed with so many gracious people. We're really lucky. So we're feeling really fortunate this week. How about you, Sheila?
Well, I had a fabulous week last week. I worked on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we went straight up to Collingwood. And John worked in Collingwood, so I got to gallivant and do my own thing on Thursday and Friday. And then John and I spent the rest of the weekend there as well. And it was like summer in Collingwood. It was probably summer everywhere in Ontario. The weather was amazing. It was so hot. I swam in the bay every day, saw the sailboats out, went to the pier, went to the beach. It was just phenomenal. And I learned something new in Collingwood. Do you know that you can see the sunrise and the sunset in Collingwood? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we didn't know that either.
Over the water, like not just, you can see it anywhere in the world, but
right.
This is great because you got that beautiful over the water view. Or depending on what time of year, like right now it's water and mountain.
Right.
But at other times it's water and water.
Yeah, so we went and saw the sunset every single day. At night, we went out, watched the sunset, and then someone said, oh, well, the sunrise is right over the water, just on the other side. And we were like, oh, my goodness. So we woke up the next day and, Oh, and it was our last day. We couldn't do it again, but it was amazing. So there you go. Learned something new. And what about you, John?
When we got the condo, we kind of fell in love with that spot, but it was a stretch financially. And so the problem I have is we usually rent it out long term. And the longer I spend away from it, I start to doubt myself. Was that a wise investment? Was that a wise use of our money? You know, is it something we can sustain and all that stuff? We are making it work. It's a close cut, but we're making it work. And then I go up there and spend time there. What a place to be. Like, it's what I love about it is this particular layout. It's very active lifestyle. We went swimming. We went for walks. We played tennis. Lots of places for me to go for a run. I had this beautiful long run on different paths in Collingwood. And so it was spectacular. And then finding out we can see the sunrise and the sunset. And I actually swam in the bay part of the water, not just
actually
on the
swam
beach.
in the bay. I don't believe it.
I'm a chicken when it comes to cold water, but I did it.
You did it.
So I'm feeling really good because I'd been doubting myself. And now I'm feeling like we made the right decision. And when it's time to retire, that'll be a fantastic place to have an active lifestyle.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave on Sunday, but back to the real world we are.
Right. Okay, well, we hope you're going to enjoy our focus on facets over the next 8 weeks and hear some of these interviews in a kind of a different context, going back to basics and reminding people about what we're all about. Guys, got anything else?
Nope.
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay, well, we hope you enjoyed the show and we will see you again soon.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.